Hey guys, so today I'm going to work on the FroKnowsPhoto Raw Edit number 57. I'm going to do a two-part video. First part will be kind of your more standard, just clean edit, and then the second one I'm just going to have a little fun with it. So make sure to watch both videos, and let's get started. Sorry about the mess. My desktop has been pretty crazy lately. I've been working a lot. So the shot today is actually kind of an interesting shot of a girl. It's really weird. Like the ring light that he shot is right on her pupil. It's kind of a weird. I don't know. It makes a little bit of a weird looking eye. So we might have to do some interesting stuff to that. But why don't we just get started? Okay, so I'm opening up in Photoshop, and it opens up in Camera Raw. He shot it with a Canon 5D Mark II at ISO 1600 with his 70-200 at 165 millimeters, f11 and 1/100th of a second. Shutter speed's a little slow, but if this is the IS version of this lens, it should be fine, and it looks super clean, so doesn't look to be much camera shake in there. The depth of field is really narrow though, because you can see the eye is in complete focus, but this starts to go out of focus, and that can't be more than what, half an inch in front of the eye. So beautiful shot. Kind of reminds me of the Afghan girl picture from, what is that, National Geographic or Time magazine or whatever it was. Which I can show you guys over here. Not the same, but you know, it just kind of reminds me of it. I guess the light, and this is, you know, obviously one of the most famous pictures ever. But let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, the first thing I always do is lens correction. Let's see if there's any. I guess the barrel has a little bit of a distortion, so not too bad though. Next, I go to my standard tab, and let's work on the white balance. See if any of the presets work. Auto doesn't work. Daylight doesn't look bad, but it's a little too warm, which makes me think that all of these are going to be too warm. But since it was shot at studio, it should be okay. I'm going to warm it up a little bit. Move the tint up just a tad. I'm going to warm it up, but not as much as that other shot. Not as much as Daylight, but I do want to warm it up just a tad. Somewhere around there, I guess. That should be good. Alright, just looking at the image, it's interesting because this lens is actually so sharp that it's showing a lot of her little skin problems, or, you know, whatever, little pimples or whatever. But that's going to be easy. We're going to get rid of all that. We're going to put some makeup on her. I might even change the color of her eyeshadow to match this a little bit. It's going to be a fun edit. It might be a little bit of a long one, but let's get really into it. I don't want to do too much in Camera Raw, I don't think. Exposure looks right on. Blacks probably could be bumped just a bit. Fill light. Yeah, let's bring out the fill light just a tad. And I hate recovery. I never use it. I don't even know why it's there. No, I'm kidding. I know why it's there, but I don't like it. Right, maybe a little brightness, just a tad. I don't like doing too much in Camera Raw because I'm going to do so much in Photoshop that negates it. So I'd rather have just kind of like a good starting image from Camera Raw. That's what I usually try to get out of Camera Raw, is just get it to a point where it's a nice starting image. Let me pause the video because I think my dog ran out real quick. Hold on. I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I have the door open because it was kind of warm, and the dog just decided to wander out. It's fenced, but I don't like him out there. Alright, let me get back to it. Where was I? Moving clarity. Vibrance, I'm going to move just a tad. Just like to add a little vibrance and a little saturation. I always find to be very, very iffy. It's always like if I go one number, it's always too far, and you know, sometimes not enough. But that looks pretty good. let's get into it. Man, I can't wait. This is going to be a fun one. Okay, so holding down shift, I'm going to hit open object. You know, everybody knows that that'll open it up. Maybe some people don't know actually, but that opens it up. Oh, wait, let me move my layers to the regular place so that you can see them. I have two monitors. And I usually have all my palettes over there and stuff, but since I want to be able to show it, I'm going to move it over here. But basically what I do is when I hit shift to open from camera raw, it opens it up as a smart object. Now, smart objects let you go back to the original. So if I double click on the smart object, it actually goes back to camera raw. And I can do more edits if I wanted to. You know, when I work in Photoshop, I like to keep everything as layers. I don't flatten anything until the final output, just because I can always make more changes that way. All right, well, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is, well, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it healing. And I'm just going to go into my healing brush, and I'm going to heal all these skin marks. See, she's got a lot of little skin marks that are normal, and obviously they use makeup to cover them up, but I think the camera is just a little too sharp for a portrait lens, and really picked up a lot of that stuff. So we're going to get rid of some of that stuff. So let's just get started. And I'm going to be quiet because I might speed this up so that I can go real close through it and speed up the time. So let's just go do it. Okay, so that was the first pass. That was my healing layer. I think that was pretty good. Let me do a quick before and after here just to check it. Yeah, and you can see I worked quite a bit. I mean, it's kind of interesting that before and afters, excuse me, before and afters really show it, but she was flawless to begin with, really. All right, so let's move on. The next layer is what I call a makeup layer. And basically, I'll make a new layer called call it makeup. And basically this, I'm going to use an airbrush, just my regular brush, set to airbrush, and a very low flow, about 5% flow. And basically what I'm going to do is pause for a second, and then I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I just got an email I have to take care of. All right, so I'm back to the makeup layer. I'm going to use a paintbrush set to airbrush and very low flow, and I'm going to make it really big using my bracket keys, probably around there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample. Holding down Option in any paintbrush gives you the sample eyedropper thingy. So you can just sample a piece of color of skin here. You can see that it sampled that kind of skin color, and I'm just going to add a real thin coat of it all around, and you want to sample in different spots so that you don't want to paint like light spots in the dark area. So you would sample this spot here and then paint that color, and you would sample this spot here and then paint that color. So you always want to keep sampling from different areas so that it works out real well. And don't worry about overflow because you can always mask it out. So sometimes I'll have overflow like that, and I'm going to be able to come back and mask it out. So not to worry about overflow too much. And I'm actually going to make this very kind of beauty shot, so I'm going to do quite a bit of airbrushing, and then what I'm going to do is I can always lower the opacity to bring back some of the actual texture of her face. But I definitely want to make this into like a beautiful studio shot. So I'm going to add quite a bit, make her look like super pristine. And it's just a matter of applying airbrush and going back and applying airbrush and going back and applying airbrush and going back. Hey, Gizmo! Stay in here. Okay, so it's starting to look pretty good. And that'll be quite enough of the airbrush, I think. Here, let's do it before and after. Yeah, but what I'm going to do, see, that went way too far. I'm going to do is I'm going to lower my opacity to about 75%. Should be around a nice number since I want it high. Usually I won't go that high, but since I really want that beauty look, I'm probably going to go around, yeah, it looks like I'm going to go about 75%. And now, this is a spot I was telling you about. I can always make a mask and change my color to black. Holding with the X key, you switch colors here. So X will just switch the background foreground colors. Same print. I always paint my masks in, so I'm gonna put my flow to 100%, and then I'm just gonna go in here, and anywhere where there was overflow, I'm just gonna paint black in to make sure there's no overflow onto the cloth over here, and even into the hair. You don't want overflow in the hair either. And you can just on and off see where you're having some overflow, and just paint it, you know, and usually you won't have too much overflow, but like for example there I had some overflow, and here I have some overflow. But you know, that's the great thing about these masks, is that you can always just kind of come back and, oops, I went too far. You can always come back and paint that overflow off. Beautiful. Alright, so see, that's where we're at. I like that. Yeah, definitely gave her a little bit of a different look. And you know what? I'm gonna remove some of it in here, because I like the darkness in there. Yeah, definitely. I like that. Okay, so now let's start doing some of the detail work. I want to add a little pink to her lips, because they're getting a little lost. I usually do it with a curve. There's millions of ways of doing it. That's the one thing about Photoshop, is there's, you know, a million ways of doing the same thing, right? So everybody does them differently. I use curves a lot. I use curves and gradient maps more than any other thing when I'm retouching, aside from my brush. And I airbrush. I use brush for everything. I don't use marquees and selections. I kind of paint everything in. It's just the way I work. I do recommend getting a Wacom tablet. If you guys don't have one, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but this saves so much time and makes everything so much easier. I really recommend it. I'm going to pause the video because I think my dog needs to go out, so hold on. Alright, I'm back. So, like I said, I use curves when I do color shifts, and even my contrast and stuff, I use curves a lot. So, you'll see. So I'm going to add a little bit of red, and as you can see, this added red overall, but again, I only want it on the lips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and see, this is a mask, and I have the foreground to black, so I'm going to use the Option Delete button, and it's going to fill this mask with black. And now, whenever you have a mask that's black, nothing's showing. Whenever you have a mask that has white, everything is showing. Everything white shows, everything black shows, grays half show. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to, with the X key, switch my colors so that my foreground, so that my brush is now painting white, and I'm going to come in with a brush and paint in with white. And I'm really not painting on my layer, I'm just painting on this mask. I'm painting white into that mask to reveal what's behind that black, right? So it's basically revealing the curve that I added, the red curve. And you'll see it's actually just adding a little red there. And it looks pretty good. Might even add a little bit more. add a little blue just because she's got a purple headdress on or whatever, so adding a little blue will make it less pink and give it a little bit of a purple tint. Not too much purple, but definitely want that. That looks good. I like that. Okay, so that really helps. All right, next I'm going to work on her eye. Her eye's got green in it, but I want it to have more green. So, oh, I got to rename this. Lip color curve. Okay, so next the eye. I'm going to make a new curve, and I'm going to call this one eye color curve. Now her eye is green, so again I'm going to go into my green channel, and I'm going to raise it just a little bit. And what I recommend, you can always go really far. You can go really far like this, and then, okay, so the D button makes your colors back to the default color, so black and white, and black in the front. So again, fill your mask with black. Command delete on a Mac fills with background color. Option delete fills with foreground color. So I'm going to hit Command delete, and it's going to fill my mask with black. And the reason I went so far off with that green, like so crazy, because that way when you go in here and you paint in your mask with the white, you can really see what it's painting. Look at that. It's crazy. Never going to use that much, but it really helps you when you're doing your mask, because now you can actually see what you're doing. And I try not to do anything in the actual black part because it'll shift it black a little bit. Now that you have your mask, that you know it's working, right? So you look at that. Whoa. So now obviously you can come back and change that curve. That would be nothing. I'm going to add a little green. And I don't like adding just green. I like adding a little bit of blue. Even if they're green eyes, there's always some blue in them. So there you go. That's where I'm going. I think that might have been a little too much. Another reason I like using curves is because I can always lower the opacity, or you can lower your curves again. But you know, they kind of does the same thing. Let's see where I like it. Somewhere around there, I think. Yeah, I just added a little hint of that green. And let me see, can I see this eye? I really can't see that eye, but shouldn't hurt if I just add a little bit in there just to pretend there was an eye there. All right, so we're starting to get somewhere. Next thing I want to do is, it's amazing, she has almost no red veins in her eyes. I wouldn't remove any of these little ones because that's too little and it'll look really fake. Sometimes I remove, like if they have really red big veins, you can use the healing brush and heal those right out. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on her hair just a little bit because her hair looks a little, I don't know, it just has a lack of color. So I'm gonna make a curve. A gradient map. I'm gonna use a gradient map for this, and I'm gonna use. I have a gradient map that I use for this. Is this one? So it's black to a like burnt sienna to yellow to a white gradient map. And what that's doing is this is your grayscale range, black to white. So anything that would have been in this grayscale range is going to be this color, and anything that would have been in this grayscale range is going to be this color, and it's going to meld them together. So what that does is kind of a crazy look. You know, that might be good for later on for the crazy one I'm going to do, but not for this one. I got an idea for the crazy one that's going to be interesting. I'm just going to lower this opacity down to about maybe 10 or 15. Maybe 10, maybe 15. And again, I'm gonna fill the mask in with black, so it doesn't affect anything. It's just and I'm gonna paint in white on this mask just in her hair. So what this is gonna do is gonna give her hair a little bit of a red yellowish tint, and we'll see if we like it. I think I'm gonna kind of like it. It'll make it a little goldier, and this is the interesting part because you've got to kind of fade it so that it doesn't look like it's fading into her skin. Okay. And again, I'm not painting on my actual picture. I'm just painting on the mask. I'm painting black and whites on the mask, back and forth until I find the exact spot I want. And that looks pretty good. Might have gone a little too far. I'll lower my opacity maybe to 10. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Another little trick I like to do when I'm doing hair is, let me do a hair color. Hair color gradient map. Oh, and I usually try to name my layers so that you know what they are. So that, like when I work, some people will come back and work on my files or something, and that's something that photographers would never deal with, but you want to be able to, if you come back later on, you want to be able to see what you did, and you kind of, sometimes you'll forget what you did, and if you name your layers, you'll know exactly what it is, and sometimes you'll have, I've had files with 500 layers on them, and it's hard to find the layer you're looking for, so, again, that's not really a photography thing, that's more when I'm doing movie posters or something, but, this will be simpler, this will probably have, I'm guessing this picture's probably going to have a good 20 layers, so even that can get pretty crazy. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to make it white overlay. Overlay on hair. What that means is I'm going to put this layer on overlay blending mode, and I'm going to paint white. I'm going to paint white in some of the spots where I just want her hair to shine and have a little more life, and you'll see if I back out. And of course I'm going too far because I always go too far, and then I'll bring it back with opacity. So that's that. See, it just gives it a little bit of life there, and I'll lower the opacity just a bit. And that looks pretty good. See, this is looking pretty good. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show. One more thing. Well, there's a couple of things I'm going to do still. So, her eyeshadow. I want to give her a little bit of an a purpley eyeshadow to match this dress, this thing on her head. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer, call it eyeshadow color. Eyeshadow color. And I'm going to use my brush, and in airbrush mode and in very low flow, and I'm going to select a color I like from over here, somewhere, in there, and I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of this eyeshadow in here, and I'm going way too far, but I'm going to lower the opacity again, and I might even put it on, yeah, see that looks pretty cool. Might even darken it just a tad. Why is it not working? Okay, so cancel. I kind of like what that did, but overlay. See, I don't want it to look like she has a bruise. So you definitely got to make it look like it's. That actually looks pretty cool. And I'm going to make a mask, and that way you can come in and really finesse where this eyeshadow falls. And see, that I kind of like. I just added a little bit of that purple in her eye shadow so that to match that, and I'm going to lower the opacity just a bit. And I go back and forth with these things all the time. But I like that. Just added a little bit of an eyeshadow and it really made it pop. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, okay, so I'm going to select everything that I've done at this point and duplicate it, holding down okay, sorry. If you hit Command Option Shift, hold all those down, and then hit the E key, it makes a composite layer on top. So basically it made a layer right here that's a composite of everything I've done below it, all of these. And that is going to be my high pass sharpen layer. The reason I do that is because I'm going to go into my filters, filter other high pass. And this is going to make a high pass layer. And I'm probably going to go in the 2.5 or 2 range. And if you put this on overlay or soft light, it just sharpens everything, and it just makes it, I like the way it looks. So, and then you got to be careful, because see how it sharpened all of these pores and stuff, and some of the hair in there. You don't want that. So what I do is I will make a mask in that layer and get rid of it by painting black into this mask where you don't want it. You know, you definitely don't want it to show any of her like pores. So usually, you know, you soften up the skin and leave some of the like the eyes and the clothing and the hair sharper. I definitely like the eyes really sharp though. I'm a big fan of sharp eyes, so I'll probably leave that. I definitely like sharp hair. I'll leave that, but I want to get rid of it on all of the other spots. That looks pretty good. So let's see. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, definitely sharpen that eye. Okay, so one more thing I want to try is I'm going to do a gradient map, and oh, that's interesting. I'm going to make a black to white, just straight black to white gradient map, and I'm going to put it on luminosity. And what that does is it gives it just a sheen or a contrast that I like for all of these images. And you got to be careful. Sometimes it goes too far. Sometimes it doesn't go far enough. In this case, I'm going to go to like 75%. 75%. And that's looking really hot. I like that a lot. Okay. It's looking pretty cool. Yeah, I definitely like this. I'm wondering if it needs a vignette, but I don't think so. Kind of like what it's doing, but you know what? Let's try it. Let's just do a I'm going to call this luminosity. Luminosity gradient map. Okay. And I'm going to do a vignette just to try it. I'm not really sure it's going to work. But that's the great thing about it. I can always get rid of it. The way I've been doing vignettes lately is select the marquee tool, make a circle, hit the Q key to bring up your quick mask, blur that. I use Gaussian blur, full blur like that, and then hit the Q key again. It'll bring it back to your satellite, to your selection. I hit Command Shift I, invert selection. And so now I have the inverted selection, and I'm just going to fill it with black. And see, that went way too far, but I'll lower the opacity to about 10. Do I like what it's doing? Kind of don't mind it because it is bringing you in a little bit, but I don't want to lose and muddy up her hair, so I don't like it. I think I'm going to leave it like that, and let me just try and add a saturation layer. Could saturate it just a bit, the whole image. That's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to leave it here, guys. Stay tuned for the part 2. And I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, make sure you call me. Make sure you comment on this YouTube. And make sure you subscribe, and you know the drill. Like it, subscribe, comment, anything you want. I love doing these things, and I will see you for part 2. And talk to you later.